This is the Cinematography for Actors podcast.
More than a podcast, CFA is a vibrant community devoted to bridging the gap between talent and crew. Each week, our show offers transparent, insightful conversations with industry leaders. We unveil the magic behind the scenes, from candid discussions about unique filmmaking processes to in-depth technical exploration.
Join us in unraveling the intricacies of filmmaking one episode at a time. It's more than just cameras and lenses over here. We aim to inspire, educate, and empower as we peel back the curtain on the art of effective storytelling.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. All right. As a DP, I know purchasing gear can kind of be a nightmare. Whether you're talent or crew, finding technical solutions to any of your problems can be very challenging. And what's even harder is knowing where to go. So we have an answer for you. Head over to BandPro, one of our incredible sponsors here at CFA. Whether you're looking for high-end cameras and lenses or looking for guidance on what is needed to get started on this equipment journey of yours, BandPro has the gear and team that you need to thrive in your own career.
They are the exclusive representative of Ingenue's complete cinema line for all of North and South America, and their customer support is fantastic. Not only do they have a great team to answer any product question you might have, but they also have a talented team of in-house technicians that you can actually talk to get your equipment back up and running.
Which is really important, especially if you're on set. So,
yeah.
Bonus. Go to bandpro.com or stop in at their location in Burbank, and please make sure to say hi from CFA because we love them
Hi
so very
from
much.
us.
Yeah, hello. Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another special episode of the Cinematography for Actors podcast. I am your host, Haley Royal. I'm sitting here with another host, Brianna Wing. Hi, Brianna.
Hi, how are you?
And we are seated here with the writer and director of Milisuthando. This is Milisuthando. Is it Bongela? Bongela?
Yes.
Bongela.
Yeah.
Bongela.
It's a hard G.
Bongela, hard G. Hi, how are
Hi.
you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're happy to have you here. We've been sitting and chatting while we wait for the live stream to get going about your story. This is a story that you've made about your own past, correct? Can you give us a little bit of a log line? Let us know what we're about to talk about.
What the film is, how long
Yeah.
it is, and what it is to you.
Well, the film is currently playing right now in next door in the next theater, and I don't have much time before I have to go back. But basically, it took me 10 years to make, and it's a personal essay documentary about love and what it means to become human in the context of race. And so I grew up in this place in South Africa called the Republic of Transkei, which was a country that no longer exists anymore, invented by the Apartheid regime as kind of a fantasy of their whole fruition of the idea of apartheid, which is that everybody should be separated by race and ethnicity. And the film looks at how I was born there in 1985, and until I was 9 years old, had no idea that apartheid was a thing or that it was happening, because we were kind of in this bubble enclave where everything was about Xhosa nationalism, and it was all funded by the apartheid regime because they wanted everybody to buy into this idea of yes, the white people must stay in their land and the black people must stay in their land. And the film kind of looks at that complex identity of growing up in this place and never experiencing racism really until we left in 1994 when apartheid ended, and has a lot of elements of what that life was like, linguistically, culturally, artistically, spiritually, but then it also covers what it means to enter into whiteness as a 9-year-old, having been in another world, and how the vestiges of racism mostly exist in our psyche, in our minds. As somebody who's never really experienced any kind of racial violence physically, psychologically and emotionally, befriending white people in these neighborhoods and schools and all that stuff also came with a cost. And the film looks at the violence, the psychic violence that can take place inside friendships that are interracial.
Listening to this, I'm blown away because it's such a monumental, emotional and psychological roller coaster to experience when you were 9, and then to think back on it as an adult. I can only imagine all the thoughts you must have been going through, but then to decide to make it into a documentary, into a film to share with people, how do you take such a personal and profound and like life-changing part and then put it into a film. Like you're essentially having to create some hard lines of this, you know, intangible feeling. How do
Yeah.
you go from that to a film? And what obstacles did you run into creatively or technically, if any?
I mean, a lot actually, because I had never seen a film like this one, and I was always looking for it. I have some films that I really liked that I was like, okay, Hale County by Romel Ross, one of my favorite documentaries, and the way that he reconstructs form. And what it means to look and see. I was like, I really like what this guy's doing here. There's another one called Nostalgia for the Light by Patricio Guzman, and I was like, I really like how he uses voiceover here. And so my film, it borrows a little bit from some, but I was like, oh, as a young African woman making films in the 21st century, I don't have much of a many reference points, because for a long time black women weren't allowed to make films in South Africa. And so when I look back to try to see, oh, what were they saying about this, they were definitely writing about things, they were taking photographs, some people may have been filming, but I couldn't find these films. And so in many ways me and my team had to kind of create the form that the film then takes. And just filming myself, filming my family. I mean, my family was extremely receptive, and they never even held back, not one thing. But filming white people and white South Africans was challenging. It came with a lot of yeses and then retracted yeses, and people going, well, what are you going to use it for? How are we going to be portrayed? And technically, I didn't study film, so I was also kind of shy about like my cinematography skills, and they weren't that good. But at the end, it works in the film because, I mean, I have a DOP, Hank Lee, but there are many shots that I filmed myself, and the whole, I was scared, and you can see it, you can feel it in the shots. They're quite shaky, and again, for me, it's a comment though on cinema and how it has kept black women out of it primarily, and so that kind of translates also as a comment about cinema, and I think the fact that I made it into a film, as artists, we don't always have a choice about the calling. When something happens and something, you don't have a choice. You just like, and every time you try to run away from it, it comes back. You might try to get you a nice fancy job in a nice place, and the ideal will keep you up at night. And so it was a matter of surrender. And the film itself, we saw it as its own entity, its own consciousness. And so it said to me many times, I will take care of you, don't worry. Don't worry. You will meet the people that you need to meet. You will get the funding that you need to get. Just have faith in that I, as an entity, want to come through you and your story. And ultimately that happened. That was true. And so it was also in the way that we approached cinema. It wasn't it wasn't attached to the industrial process of it. It was more attached to the artistic process and what role cinema plays in the world and what it can play.
What was something that you learned technically about building this? And you mentioned there was no archival footage that you could use. Did you have to build anything to get a feeling across something similar to what you felt before? Are there technical tricks you learned?
There was actually a lot of archival footage.
There was?
A lot.
Fantastic.
My film is mostly, it's like 60% or 50% archive. And the thing about that archive is that a lot of it had never been seen by South Africans or anyone in the world before, because it was still in like film reels and cans, and then it was digitized, and it was owned by the regime, the Apartheid regime, and it was basically them recording their sins in the everyday.
Yes.
And so they never for one second thought that one day, 50 years down the line, someone like me would find it and use it. And so technically we couldn't use that material because it was propaganda. We couldn't use it as a way of saying, oh, this is what happened. And so we had to subvert it. We had to find ways. The way in which we've cut it is a comment on the material itself. It's not like a reliable source.
Wow.
And so, I mean, yeah, technically, I mean, I'm still very much in the writing, directing. I had excellent partners. I had an excellent DOP and an editor. And it was a challenge for all of us because she too had never really cut a film like this. And so I think that the biggest achievement and the biggest thing that we learned was that we can take something that doesn't exist and put our minds together and have it make sense. Our biggest fear was like, is this going to make sense to anyone? Is anyone going to get it? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm at AFI, so someone got it.
Yeah, being able to trust your collaborators in that way and know that you'll be able to create something that you have thought up or felt before.
How big
pretty
was
great.
your team when you were filming, like in the field or with your family?
2 people. It was
Two
me
people?
and Henkel, and it was because whenever we showed up with the crew, we did try have a crew at first, and we found that people don't respond well. In a documentary, people, the minute there's a big guy with a camera and lights and this and that, people then they stand up and they want to perform for the camera, so
Yeah.
no one is being real. And we were filming in bedrooms, like, you know, in my grandmother's house, and so we had to figure out how to approximate intimacy and quiet. And so we had these expensive cameras that we couldn't use, and so I ended up having to use my cell phone, because that is when people are used to cell phones, and so they kind of act more natural.
Yep.
And then my DOP was like as light as a feather. Her presence was just, I don't know how she did it, but you kind of never knew she was there. And the way she would film with like a 50 milliliter or 35 millimeter lens, sometimes a lot of shots are quite close. And I'm like, how did you do this? And it's because she's Asian, and black people were not like afraid, and it didn't take away too much attention from like the scene. If say it was a white person there, they'd be like, oh, we must now behave a certain way.
Yeah.
The fact that she's Korean, it was very, I don't know, they just were like, oh, okay, there she is. Then they carried on, and so she also moved quite differently in the space. Yeah.
And did you record sound straight to your phone or sound straight to camera in those intimate small two
We had
people?
we had a sound guy who would also stay quite far away from me, actually. So his name was Muntu, and Muntu would be quite far away when we were recording, so he also wasn't a presence in the space sometimes. And then sometimes it would be to the cell phone, or sometimes to like a field microphone.
Got it.
Yeah.
This has been such an incredible interview. I feel like I learned a year's worth of things.
I
in
know, I just
a
got
minute.
totally sucked into that. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we do have to wrap things
You
up.
have to run. You
I
have
have
to
to
get
run. I
to
have
a
to
Q&A.
go- yes.
Milisuthando is screening right now. Milisuthando has to go and do
Thank
a
you, guys.
Q&A.
Thank you so much for
It's
coming to
wonderful
Thank
to
you very
have
much.
you here. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.
Bye. See
Yay.
you next time.
Join us in bridging the gap between talent and crew. Start by subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on vendor discounts, community events, new podcast releases, and you can educate yourself through our free course releases on YouTube.
It all starts at cinematographyforactors.com, and if you like this episode, consider leaving a review to make it easier for fine folks just like yourself to find us. We have some super exciting news. CFA has teamed up with We Make Movies to offer you a discount on production management services, including access to comprehensive production insurance, workers' comp for your next shoot. All you have to do is visit wemakemovies.com/insurance and use code CFA23 on your intake form for 10% off your quote.
Also, we've just partnered with We Audition, which I'm sure you know I'm very excited about, to offer you 25% off your membership. Use code CFA25 to get that membership for only $7.50 a month or $75 a year.